Okay, so today I'm going to show you support and resistance, all the way through from what is support and resistance, why it's vital, and how to place support and resistance on your chart, and finally some of the results support and resistance can give you. Now, you might be thinking support and resistance, I know how to use Fibonacci and pivot points, but this is not that kind of support and resistance. This is real support and resistance. It's not calculated by some mathematical formula. It's calculated by you using your eyes to figure out areas in which price is struggling. Fibonacci and pivot points have their place in Forex, but they have one major problem. They are placed based on a formula. So you as the trader do not have much say in where the lines are placed. This is a problem because Forex is a market driven by traders, buyers and sellers. So using support and resistance that is identified by buyers and sellers is more accurate. I'm not saying pivot points and Fibonacci are useless. I am saying that freehand support and resistance, what I'm showing you in this video, is more accurate. The reason freehand support and resistance is more accurate is because it's what the big boys use. Banks and institutions look at their charts through support and resistance. They make buying and selling decisions based on support and resistance. And the big boys, they're the ones who drive the market. So if you're in a trade, you want to be in a trade with the big boys because they're the smart money. Now, besides the fact that the big boys use this stuff, let's look at why you have to use support and resistance. Because I don't care what strategy you use, what time frame you trade, what pair you trade, or even what market you trade, support and resistance is vital. It is vital to have support and resistance on your chart because it identifies areas in which there are large groupings of buyers and sellers. Support is another word for buyers. Buyers are grouped at support areas. Resistance is another word for sellers. Sellers are grouped at areas of resistance. So looking at this chart, support appears below current price and resistance appears above current price. So this green area here, this is an area of support and buyers are grouped down here. Now this red area up here, this is an area of resistance and there are sellers grouped up in this area. Now this information is useful because it tells you ahead of time what is likely to happen. When buyers push price up to here, we know that price will probably stall and might reverse because there are sellers grouped up here. When sellers push price down to here, we know that price will probably stall or reverse because buyers are grouped here. This is why you should start using support and resistance. Now think about all the uses for this kind of information. Support and resistance tells you where buyers and sellers are located, so it can be used to see where price will probably stall. So let's say your strategy tells you to go long here at the top of this candle. Well, if you're using support and resistance, you know that if you buy here, you're buying into a large group of sellers, you're buying into resistance. Why would you buy when there is a massive amount of sellers just above your buy position? It's not logical, right? So using support and resistance, you know to avoid this long trade. Now this is just one example. Another way to use support and resistance is to trade reversals, and this is what I do. If you know that buyers will enter the market around about down here where the support area is, then you know the best place to enter a bullish trade or to look for a bullish reversal. There is more to reversal trading than simply entering when price touches an area of support or resistance, but what I'm showing you is why these areas are important. They are a major piece of the Forex puzzle, and if you're not using them, you need to start using them. Now, that takes us to the next question. How do you place support and resistance? Because one of the biggest complaints I hear about freehand support and resistance over Fibonacci or pivot points is that they are harder to place, and that turns a lot of new people away. Well, the truth is they are harder to place, but after you place them a few times, you get the hang of it, and you can place support and resistance in just minutes. So let's take a look at this GBP USD 4-hour chart and place some support and resistance. Now, if you trade smaller or larger time frames in the 4-hour, don't worry, this technique can be used on all time frames in the same way. So the technique I'm showing you, you can use it on the 5-minute time frame, you could use it on the weekly charts. Now, the key here is to go with your instinct. You don't want to overthink the placement of support and resistance. When you do that, you start to make mistakes. So just go with your instinct. The first line you see is usually going to be the right one. Okay, one thing to note about this GBP USD chart is that from around about this level here, price started to move into areas it hasn't seen in quite a few months. Now this means it's a little harder to play support and resistance because you really don't have much to go on. You really only have this small trend here to go on. And that means it's a lot harder to play support and resistance. Now the reason I'm showing you on this chart is because if you learn to play support and resistance on a chart like this, when there's so little information to go on, it's going to be really, really easy for you to place it in most situations. And to be honest, placing support and resistance on a chart like this isn't really hard. It's just a little bit harder, but it's still pretty easy. So let me show you how. Step one is to just place the support and resistance. And this may sound a little complicated, but all you need to do is look at your chart for recent bounces. And we're going to start at the top here. The first bounce that looks really, really obvious to me is this one here. Then followed by this one, and followed by this one. Now these three bounces are very, very obvious. They aren't all from the same line, but they're from the same area. And we're placing support and resistance areas, so they don't have to line up perfectly. So let's remove these drawings and throw a line up here. Now, that was the first step. Identified bounces and placed a line there. Pretty easy stuff. Okay, now let's place another line. I'm going to throw one down here at this bounce. Look at this bounce here. That's a very big bounce, very significant. And when price tried to come up through here, it had a kind of small bounce. See how price came up? Then it fell back down and this little candle formed before it just took control and came back up. So there's kind of two bounces from this general area, but only one is really, really significant. There's only one really big bounce. But like I said, we don't have much information to go on right now, so we need to place it even though there's just one bounce. Ideally, I'd like to see 2 or 3 bounces, but we don't have enough information, so I'm just going to throw this one up. Okay, so next one. Now the next thing that kind of sticks out is this movement here. See how price kind of stalls and goes sideways for a bit and then comes back up and stalls again and goes sideways? Now this indicates that in this area there might be some support and resistance. Again, we don't have enough information to go on. I mean, it'd be great if we could just look to the left a little bit and see previous bounces there, but we can't because this trend is going into areas that haven't been hit for months. So we just have to place this and we'll confirm it later. We'll confirm it by going back and making sure it is an area of support and resistance. Okay, next area is probably going to go here. Now, this one is here for pretty obvious reasons. Price came up here, went sideways, then kept moving up. It went sideways for quite a while, so it looks like this might be a significant area of support and resistance. And we'll just throw up maybe one more. And this one's going to be the easiest. I'm going to throw one here. Now the reason I'm throwing it here should be quite obvious. We got a huge bounce here, got another bounce here, and then price stalled trying to get through it, and eventually broke up through it. So this one's pretty obvious. This one I'm very confident in. And most charts you look at, you're going to have support and resistance like this, where you've had several bounces recently. Now we move on to step 2. Now step 2, we just have to drag the chart back a bit and look at what happened last time price crossed through this area. If these lines actually look like support and resistance last time price came through this area. So let's pull back to here. Okay, so this one here doesn't really look like support and resistance, but what about that one above? I mean, we've got this peak here. So let's place a line here. Let's drag price back to where it was the other day. And you can see it fits in perfectly with this bounce here. So there you go, we found the support and resistance area. So let's throw another line up here. And then I'm going to give it a center line. With support and resistance areas, I have 2 outer lines and 1 center line. Now there is no rule on how far the outer lines have to be from the center line, but it's roughly 10 pips to either side on a 4-hour chart. So a support and resistance area usually spans about 20 pips, sometimes 30 pips. So there's no precise rule. I just throw them up around about 10 pips to either side. Okay, so we've found our first one. Now let's check out this other one, the one below it. Now it doesn't really look like this is that great an area of support and resistance. I mean, price did struggle here a little bit. Maybe let's pull it back a little further. Okay, now this is starting to look a little better. I mean, look at this. Price came down to it and bounced away from it. Came back down to it, bounced away from it. Came back down to it again, bounced away from it. Broke through it, came back up and bounced away. And it has some history here too. Price came up to it and then rode along it for a bit. And I think I pulled it back a bit more and I saw, yeah, there's a couple of bounces there. So this is definitely an area of support and resistance. So we're going to mark this one. We'll just throw up, move this up a bit, and we'll give it a center line. There we go, easy stuff. Now let's look at the next one. Now the next one is, yeah, again, pretty obvious. I mean, as we can see, price came up to it, stalled for a bit, broke above it, came back down to it, pushed up. When price was coming back down here, it stalled for a while, broke below it, then pushed back up, another bounce. Yeah, I think we can call that an area of support and resistance. So as you see, all I'm doing here is I'm placing support and resistance based on recent data, and then I'm dragging them back a little bit just to make sure that price has bounced from there in the past. It's really, really a simple process, and once you do it a few times, it just becomes really easy to do. Okay, the one below it, yeah, this one looks like it has a bounce here, another bounce here, another bounce there, and here, pretty significant. It looks okay, doesn't look extremely strong. Let's pull it back to last time. Check out that bounce there. I mean, now that's a lot more significant. Yeah, I feel confident placing this line, this area, sorry. So this is another area of support and resistance. And again, I'm just gonna move this up a bit, move this down a bit, and throw up a center line. Now, I don't really think we need to do any more. I mean, you see the process here. It's a dead simple process. You pick the lines on recent data, you drag your chart back a bit, and you confirm them based on previous bounces. If you have a lot of previous bounces and they're big ones, then it usually means that this is a valid area of support and resistance. So that's really the whole process. Now, there is one more step. You might have to move these lines up and down 10 to 20 pips as time passes. Support and resistance does migrate slightly, so you might need to move them up or down 10 or 20 pips. And the way you do that is, if you notice that price starts bouncing, for example, just below this level, kind of like that, then you know that you might need to move this level down 10, 20 pips to compensate for these new bounces. And that's going to happen sometimes. I mean, they do migrate, they don't last forever in the exact same spot. So if you notice that, just push them down a little bit. It's really, really simple. Now that's how you place support and resistance. It's not that hard. Now I have a surprise for you. You might already have this surprise because I've given it out a few times on Forex for Noobs, but I have a regularly updated cheat sheet that's linked to below. Now in this cheat sheet, I share my support and resistance areas for my 3 favorite pairs. I update this sheet regularly, so you can check it out, and if you want to, you could just copy all my lines. However, I suggest strongly that you first place these areas by yourself, and then you use the cheat sheet to confirm that you've placed the right ones. So now you know how to place support and resistance areas. And before I go on, I just wanted to say again, if you like this video so far, please don't forget to click the like button. It will only take you a few seconds and it will not pause this video. It won't send you to a new page. Clicking that button helps me out a lot. So if you can click it, please do. And thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to show you two recent trades using support and resistance. One of these trades I missed. I was supposed to take it, but I just wasn't around at the time to take it, and I didn't see it forming, so I missed it, and I'm really annoyed that I missed it because it was a beautiful trade. Now this second one I took, and I took it just this Monday, so this was another great trade. So I'm going to show you these two trades, and they were mainly based on support and resistance, and they were both extremely profitable. Now you're looking at an AUD USD daily chart, and the first setup was here. So what we had was a bearish trend. The bears had control of the market and they were pushing down, and they got down into this area. This is an area of support. It's an area where buyers are grouped. And then what happens? All of a sudden the bulls take control of the market. So no surprise, sellers come into an area of support and buyers start buying and they take control of the market. Now this is the trade I missed. I should have entered around about here. And I should have stayed in until at least here, but maybe all the way up to here. However, I didn't. I missed this trade. Very unfortunate. But this was a great setup, and it was all thanks to support and resistance. Specifically, an area of support, this area down here. This area of support, it alerted me that there were buyers down here. And when sellers came into this area, I knew buyers were going to fight for control of the market. And when I could confirm that buyers did take control of the market, I could jump in long and make some profit. But like I said, I missed this trade. Now I'm going to show you one I actually took, one that I was able to enter. And I took this trade on Monday and it worked out perfectly for me. And again, this was based on support and resistance. So now we have this bullish trend. So the bulls came all the way up to here and then they hit this area of resistance here. And what do you know? They reversed. Sellers flooded the market because this is an area full of sellers. We know there are sellers up here. We know there are people wanting to sell. They flooded the market and they pushed price down. As soon as I confirmed that sellers took control of this market, I entered a short trade and I got out about 100 pips later. Two of my lots were exited with 40 pips. I think the other 3 were exited with about 100 pips, if I remember correctly. I actually done a live trade video for this trade, so you can see me actually taking this trade, actually using the support and resistance I'm talking about in this video to take a real trade. So you can see that I've linked to the video below. Now this is the power of support and resistance. It tells you where the buyers are and where the sellers are. And once you know that, well, everybody wants a crystal ball in Forex. They want to be able to tell the future. And I can't give you that. No one can really, but support and resistance is the next best thing. I mean, it's nowhere near as good as being able to tell the future, but it's the next best thing. I mean, it tells you where buyers are and where sellers are and where they're probably going to enter the market. And that is one of the biggest pieces in the puzzle that is Forex, knowing where buyers and sellers are and when they're probably going to enter the market. And this is what support and resistance gives to you. So now I've showed you how to place support and resistance. You should be able to place it for yourself. I've given you a cheat sheet linked to below. Place these areas on your chart and start making use of them because they will make you pips if you use them right. So I hope you liked this video. I hope you found it useful. If you liked it, again, please click the like button if you haven't. It really helps me out a lot. It takes me a long time to make these videos. Please click that like button and please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more. See you around the site.